Oh, here we go. Do we have a show for you? Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube as well as on X. I am Bryson Carver, as always. We are pre-recording the show around 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's airing, obviously, at 6. So, listen, especially in the time that we are in right now with the draft going on, if there's anything in the world of sports that has happened, I am aware of it, just not the time that you're watching me. We've got all kinds of stuff, mostly related to the draft. Going to discuss some NBA stuff. It was a big comeback the Thunder made last night on the hapless Memphis Grizzlies. The Warriors, Jimmy Butler, the latest news on his injury. He suffered in game 2, but mostly draft stuff. The Jaguars trading for Travis Hunter. The Bears going with Colston Loveland over Tyler Warren. So going with a guy a lot of people viewed as the second best tight end over the best tight end. What that means for Caleb Williams' reaction to all first-round picks. Very excited. We talked about it all throughout last night's show. And by the way, for those who didn't catch it, this is the thumbnail for it. But last night, myself, EJ Savage, Mike Guido, and Tim Barner joined us early on and stayed with us throughout as well. Covered the NFL Draft 2025 first round. It was a blast. We've got a lot of feedback, a lot of activity in the comment section. A lot of our creators, the grid, were highlighted throughout it. So shout out to everybody who tuned in. Mike and EJ, I'm pretty sure, are going to be going live pretty darn soon at the time that this is airing right now to cover rounds 2 and 3, which is tonight. And then we'll see if they're doing 4 through 7 tomorrow, but they've done an unbelievable job, so definitely check out their stuff. So let's just get right into the draft. Let's get to the big story that's dominating the headlines this morning. But first, so Shedeur Sanders falls, and I think this is a great opportunity for me because the last couple of weeks I have not done a Carving Up the Context segment, so it feels fitting given that I quote Shedeur Sanders' father when I introduce Carving Up the Context. So here we go. As the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, primetime Deion Sanders says, "Give me my theme music." On this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, we're going to discuss Shedeur Sanders falling into the second round. So coming into this first round of a draft, listen, I took a big swing on my mock draft on Monday. I said, listen, I think the Giants are just going to say, screw it. We've got to save some jobs here. We're going to go Shedeur Sanders, second best quarterback in this draft, to Cam Ward at number 3 and pass over Abdul Carter because I already thought they had a great D-line. As time got close to the first round, I realized I was going to be dead wrong on that. They went Abdul Carter. And again, we'll get to some of the first round or all the first round picks later on this show. But so he falls past the Giants. And I said, a month ago when the Giants signed Russell Wilson after signing Jameis Winston, this means Shedeur Sanders is going to fall further than maybe we thought. And if the Saints were going to take him, especially with the Derek Carr news, they ended up taking Kelvin Banks, the tackle of Texas, then the slide could fall all the way down to my Steelers at 21. And listen, I have been as vocal as anybody. If there's a quarterback you love in this draft, take him. Get your franchise guy. The Steelers have been starved for that type of difference maker at the position for some time now. If you don't believe in Shedeur Sanders, okay, so now some of that concerns me just in the sense that Mike Tomlin and the Steelers are just have an allergic reaction to offense. It's unbelievable. And Derek Carr is a good player and a great kid. I'll touch on that later. So Shedeur Sanders continues to fall. And really the kind of line of demarcation where we're like, holy smokes, what's going on here? Is when the New York Giants trade back into the first round and select Jackson Dart, quarterback out of Ole Miss, who had gotten some boost in recent days. And we saw Joe Shane's son, who just reveals everything, I guess, but put out a Jackson Dart tape on his IG stories, which seemed to be kind of a look into what the Giants were looking at. And so it's Cam Ward at 1. Nobody surprised there. I think that's the correct pick by Tennessee. And then Jackson Dart later in the first round to the Giants. So here's where I'm confused with Shedeur Sanders. Or not really with Shedeur. I kind of know what Shedeur is as a prospect, at least at this point. I think as much as any prospect there is because he's been under the spotlight, and more on that. I think with the coverage, or at least how do these teams view the quarterback? How do they view this particular player? Is it through the lens of the attention and surrounding him with his father and the Sanders name and the sort of bravado that this kid brings to the table, or is it just strictly based on tape? Is it strictly based on production? Because when it comes to production, here's what I've seen. I see a guy who, listen, the biggest knock on Shedeur, and it is a completely fair one, his arm talent just does not blow you away. It doesn't. I think the best arm in this draft is not Cam Ward. I think it's Jalen Milroe, actually. Now, the problem is Jalen Milroe is not refined at all. He will be a project. I would not be crazy if my Steelers took him because if there's one team that cannot develop projects, it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. But if you could just transpose Jalen Milroe's arm strength onto Shedeur Sanders, I think even despite all of the other stuff, I think he has to go first round. So that's the knock on him, and especially for a cold weather team. And again, if there's any trades that have happened at the time this is airing, again, apologies in advance. The Browns have 2 of the first 4 picks in the second round at the time we're recording this after 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if I had to guess, I think they take Shedeur. Cleveland's one of the coldest cities in America and certainly in the NFL. That's going to be a little bit of a concern, Shedeur throwing in the cold weather. With that being said, everything else, he's kind of lived the NFL life in college football. First of all, the number one thing you got to be, and this is why I was never an Anthony Richardson believer with the Indianapolis Colts. I got the physical traits of Florida, understood, was not a believer in him, is you just got to be accurate. You've got to deliver the football on time, on target. And this kid did that and then some. Completed 69% of his throws at Colorado, 74% of his throws last year at Colorado. So again, the guy is deadly accurate. That's the biggest kind of check in the box for him. Okay, he's not that mobile of a quarterback. But in recent years, or at least in the last decade, it's sort of shifted, I think, with the rise of Mahomes and his generation with Allen and Lamar Jackson, more on Lamar, but sort of the fall of the pure pocket guy, the Tom Brady stereotype. Tom's the GOAT, obviously, but Jared Goff is a prime example, kind of a last of a dying breed. Shedeur Sanders is not in that mold, but Shedeur can move. He's not a scrambler, but he can move. And so I was under the impression that was, this is what we want to see with quarterbacks. Like, you got to be a pocket guy. You got to be deadly accurate. Well, that seems to be a knock on Shedeur Sanders, and they took the kid Jackson Dart, who's more like the gamer. The guy who goes first overall, Cam Ward, is the ultimate sort. Again, I thought like an offshoot of Caleb Williams, kind of plays a sort of free-flowing style. Shedeur is more traditional, and yet that's a problem. So I'm confused by that. I'm also confused with this, or at least I see this as a check in Shedeur's column because, again, as I said, he's lived the NFL life so far in college. Okay, not just the pressure of being Deion Sanders' son and all of it. We get that. So pressure. But he inherited, with his father, I get this, and his father's done an amazing job at rebuilding Colorado, but inherited, folks, an abject embarrassment to the sport of football itself. What the Colorado Buffaloes were prior to the arrival of Deion Shedeur and, of course, Travis Hunter, the second overall pick in the draft. Folks, 2020, I think we forget this. 2022, ladies and gentlemen, the Colorado Buffaloes went 1-11. As if that's not bad enough, they went 1-11. Those 11 losses, they lost on average by 29 points per game. A regular Saturday at the office was Colorado losing by 4 touchdowns. And I get margins are much greater in college than the NFL because obviously the talent gap is significantly, there's the margin for error is not what it is in the NFL, obviously. But he's had to overcome things that a lot of quarterbacks, even in this process, have not had to overcome. There's a reason that the best quarterbacks in the league today, Joe Burrow and CJ Stroud are kind of the exceptions. Stroud certainly, given that he's an Ohio State guy, and Burrow, LSU has always been a power. But dealing with bad offensive line play at Colorado, didn't Shedeur Sanders have to deal with? I think he took like 94 sacks in college. Some of those were self-inflicted, but some of that was, guys, I just have to have time to make a play, and you guys aren't giving it to me. That's the NFL life. Sometimes you're just not going to have a great O-line sometimes. I think Mahomes overcame that all year with the Kansas City Chiefs, and then in the Super Bowl, they faced a team that they just simply could not overcome it against. The Philadelphia Eagles pass rush was a nightmare for Kansas City. But that's the NFL life. It's not going to be 5-star linemen in front of you. It's not going to be Travis Hunter's the Heisman Trophy winner. We get that. But you're not, you think about Ohio State receivers the last few years. Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka, Jeremiah Smith. These guys are just, 5-star, top of their class, all of it. There's a reason, folks, the best quarterbacks in the NFL today don't come from traditional powers. Patrick Mahomes went to Texas Tech. Josh Allen went to Wyoming. Lamar Jackson went to Louisville. That's just kind of how the NFL works. And so Now, again, there's Jaden Daniels. I get that. But it's, and some of that is because the college game has become more like the pro game, which is why I have some concerns about Jackson Dart, is because he played in a very pro-style offense at Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin, and there was a lot of inconsistency there, and yet you took him over Shedeur. So all the previous rules that come into play with this position are all of a sudden thrown out the window for this player. And it's because what we're scared of his dad. You don't employ his, like, what are you afraid of? Deion's going to be outspoken? When has that not been the case? And for the record, newsflash, it's kind of worked for Deion. He was very successful at Jackson State, got him to the SWAC championship game. 4-8 the first year at Colorado, but he actually quadrupled their win total from the season before. They won one game by losing by an average of 29 points per game, and then they win 9 games this season at Colorado. So, safe to say that the Deion Sanders mold has worked pretty well so far, particularly given what he's been asked to work with as it relates to talent. Now, as he continues to recruit talent to Colorado, and if he stays with the Buffaloes, that could become a real power in college football, and I think it's been trending that way. But we have to look at the reality of the situation. It has worked with what he's had. So I just don't I don't understand why the knock on the kid. Listen, this isn't. I'll give you an example. Like I've learned this over the years, and my wonderful parents have instilled many lessons in me over the course of my life. One of them that I've just never forgotten or lost is if you were talking about relationships, when you marry someone, when you get into a relationship with someone, you are not getting a relationship with them exclusively. You're getting a relationship with all of them, and that includes the people around them. So their family, all of it. Like when you marry, again, a heterosexual guy here, when you marry a woman, you marry her family, her dad, mom, siblings, all of it. Like that's just the reality of it. So I get that from an NFL perspective. If you take a quarterback that high, you are wetted at the hip if you're taking that guy that high in the draft. And so that comes with Deion. It comes with the Shedeur, with the Sanders family name. I get that. My question is, when has that ever been a negative, a net negative for Deion Sanders? When has it been a net negative for Shedeur Sanders, in which it has hindered his play, hindered his production, given what he's been asked to work with at Colorado? So I just, there's the dots aren't connecting. There's a level of, I think there's I think, honestly, this reason I keep bringing up Deion, I don't think it's necessarily a dislike of Shedeur or a concern for Shedeur. I really don't. I think it's a Deion thing. I think people are threatened. Deion Sanders had a great quote a few years ago. Don't let my confidence offend your insecurity. It feels like that's what's kind of happening around the league, is like, just because I don't do it the traditional way does not mean that does not work. And Shedeur checks all outside of arm strength, and I get that, checks all the boxes from a film perspective for any potential franchise quarterback to go in round 1, or at this point feels like top of round 2, and yet somehow, some way, he's not the guy because, we're scared Deion's going to say something. Ooh, wow, that shows me you're thin-skinned. It shows me you are not necessarily about the right things. I don't know. It's it smells big time, and I think what sucks in all of this, and again, this is a pre-taped show, so maybe something has happened at the time that you're watching this in terms of a trade. But if you look at the top of the second round, you look at the Cleveland Browns lead off the second round. If I had to guess, because the Browns have a pick three picks later, I don't think Cleveland's going to take Shedeur Sanders to start the second round of this draft. But if I can pull up the picks here, so Cleveland starts, Houston via trades. Houston's obviously not taking him. Tennessee's not taking him. Then the Cleveland Browns, and then the Vegas Raiders. So could Vegas take him? Is Geno just going to be their guy for a year and a half? Then they go to Shedeur. I actually wouldn't hate Las Vegas as a spot, because you got Brock Bowers, you got now Ashton Genty, Pete Carroll's the coach, like Tom Brady's in ownership. That actually would be a pretty good spot for Shedeur Sanders. Cleveland would be an abject disaster. I'm a Kevin Stefanski fan, but listen, all my jokes about Cleveland fans, and no franchise has had less success. The Jets are darn close, but no franchise has had less success, famously, developing quarterbacks, getting the most out of quarterbacks, and heck, just having a stable operation than the Cleveland Browns. And yet, that's where he's going to end up going. So this could end up being a lose-lose for Shedeur. He loses money because he falls. It's the rest of the league makes the kid look bad, and he might end up with the worst run organization in the NFL next to the New York Jets. So It's on this week's edition of Carving Up the Context. I think it's fishy. It smells, and I hate that this is happening. Hate it for Shedeur's sake, because all of the traditional boxes he checks outside of arm strength. He checks them, and so I don't like it at all. So again, I know I've said it throughout that segment, but it feels particularly important on a day like today, given that the draft is tonight and obviously the NBA playoffs going on, that the show is not live. It's airing at 6, or at this point, I guess it's 6:15, but I'm taping this. It's now like a little after 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So again, any trades that have happened, I'm aware just not the time you're watching me. So like the Steelers have been rumored to be potentially moving George Pickens, which I would be in favor of, because I do not want to give that man a long-term extension. Money just makes you more of what you are. And George Pickens is a character problem guy, is a head case in the locker room. That's not where the Steelers should go. So shifting now to Travis Hunter. So we're staying with Colorado players. Travis Hunter goes second overall. We figured he'd go second for the last couple of weeks now, but it's not to the Cleveland Browns. Thank God for my Steelers, and thank God for Travis Hunter's sake. It's Jacksonville. So the Jaguars traded, and we have the trade details written them down. So the Jaguars got the second overall pick, which was Travis Hunter, a 4th-round pick, and a 6th-round pick, which are, to be specific, 104 and 200. The Browns got the 5th pick, which they used to select Mason Graham, defensive tackle out of Michigan. They got a 2nd-round pick, number 36, a 4th-round pick, number 126, and next year's 1st-round pick from the Jacksonville Jaguars. So Cleveland's in a spot where they got 2 first-rounders next year. They got like an extra second. Like this could really be an opportunity for the Browns to do something. Now, again, I don't think Andrew Berry's as good of a GM as he gets credit for, so I'm not a believer that they can necessarily cash in, because people, and the discussion has been today, who won this trade? Like, oh, yes, Travis Hunter is the best player in the draft. He goes to the Jaguars, but man, look at the haul Cleveland got. Yeah, but I often don't put a lot of stock in draft hauls if you're not good at drafting. So I don't think the Cleveland Browns will be able to amass enough talent to equal what Travis Hunter, I think, is going to do in Jacksonville, and that's where I want to shift. So it's funny. During our draft show last night, before the trade happened, it was kind of a dilemma. So we knew Cam Ward was going to the Tennessee Titans. We knew Travis Hunter was going to go second. We didn't know it was going to be the Jags. We figured it was going to be Cleveland. Then Abdul Carter to the Giants, and then Will Campbell to the Patriots. It was kind of chalk the first 4 picks. And then at that point, Mason Graham would be the projected next pick to the Jaguars. But you're in a weird situation where, okay, do we go Mason Graham, or do we maybe trade down, get some draft capital, and take a Tet McMillan, take a Matthew Golden, get Trevor Lawrence some help on the outside? And they said, screw that. Let's just address both needs. Our defense is awful. Our secondary is atrocious. We'll address that. And Trevor Lawrence gets another weapon, which, by the way, if you look at what the Jacksonville Jaguars have in terms of offensively, it's Brian Thomas Jr. last year. Now they get Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter. So, Trevor Lawrence, who folks know I've been extremely high on and have been giving second chances and third chances because I think his talent is just so obvious. But he's got to step it up this year. Liam Cohen, I don't know if he's going to pan out as a head coach. The Duval press conference was weird, but he's a smart play caller. You've got now 2 A-level receivers, A-level receiver prospects the last couple of drafts. Like, Trevor's got to step it up this year. If year 4 it doesn't happen, then at that point you do start to have some really serious questions about whether the Jacksonville Jaguars should move on. On the Travis Hunter side of it, so generally speaking, when you have certain guys that defy conventional standards, conventional wisdom as it relates to what you should do as it relates to being an athlete or whatever, and you're projected because of your strengths and abilities as a generational talent, usually you are. Again, I'm not saying he's this, but I'm just using examples. LeBron James is the chosen one at 16 years old. Sports Illustrated was right. They got that one right. There was just he didn't look like everybody else. We see what LeBron James has become. Tiger Woods, before he was even a teenager, it was like, who the flip is this kid? And he didn't look like everybody else his age. And then he panned out into arguably the greatest call forever. Like, generally with these Wemby, okay, that's a 7'5" guy who is shooting one-legged threes and is Rudy Gobert as a shot blocker. That feels like it's going to be amazing. It has been. Shohei Ohtani, my man Barry Grant Jr., shout out to him, is called Travis Hunter, again, cross-sport, example as the Black Shohei. You get that because Shohei obviously pitches or will pitch, get back to pitching soon, and is an unreal offensive force. But Shohei coming from Japan, I don't know if we necessarily thought he'd be this, but there was a holy crap, this guy's a two-way player. He pitches, he's an elite, he's like an ace, and he's a power hitter. Like, who is this guy? And you see, so these generational, defying conventional wisdom guys do tend to be generational all-time talent. I am not projecting this on the young man, although he seems like the type of dude that would almost embrace this, because Travis Hunter is, what did he say? He said I sleep 8 hours and the other 16 hours I like fish, play video games, and play football. Like, he is the definition of a football guy. He loves the game. He's obsessed with getting better in every single way that he can. So you're getting an all-in guy who's extremely talented. Those guys become Hall of Famers. If you took one play out of this draft and said, Bryson, this guy's going to have a gold jacket in 20 years, this would be the guy, I think. I'm not saying he will be. He hasn't played. He hasn't even gotten his jersey yet, his real jersey with the Jacksonville Jaguars yet. I think he's that type of talent. I think he's that. I'm not saying he's going to lift the Jaguars into being a consistent winning organization, which they really haven't been much in their history, at least recent history, but what he can do on both sides of the ball. And there's been this concern, I'm not sure he can do it. The NFL is different. Listen, man, if there's a special level of conditioning that this guy has in order to do it in college football, and by the way, Pac-12, which was amazing, his only year there, and then the Big 12, when Colorado transitioned there, won the Heisman Trophy. Like, he did it in high school, used to it, did it at Jackson State, used to it, did it at Colorado, used to it. Like, it's not going to be that big of an adjustment. And I get the gap between Big 12 talent and the National Football League is huge, but it's not insurmountable for this kid. And I think when we tell generational prospects, and again, guys that defy conventional wisdom, what they can and cannot do, I think you don't get the very best out of that particular player. And so I think this is the only reason I hesitate to say franchise changer is just because he isn't a quarterback, but you are getting two players in one. You are getting an elite wide receiver prospect, and you're getting the best corner prospect. And so, listen, I think Jacksonville, I understand folks saying that Cleveland won this trade. I would listen to that argument if it was the Rams who made this deal, or if it was, they would never draft as high because they'll never be this bad. But if Philadelphia, made this move, and Howie Roseman, it's like, well, Howie Roseman's kind of a wizard. Les needs a wizard with the Rams. Okay, Brett Veach with the Chiefs. Like, it's certain GMs. You'd be like, okay, if they acquire this level of talent, my guess is they'll make it happen. And that's not Andrew Berry, and that's not the Cleveland Browns. That's just not who they are. It's not. And so I'm not saying they won't hit on those picks. I'm saying history would tell you that Jacksonville got the best player out of what's going to transpire once this trade is, I guess, officially completed during next year's draft. So we got to see how it plays out. But I think Travis is an unreal prospect. I think the Jaguars got a true blue chip superstar day one in the National Football League. I don't know what the Vegas odds say as far as rookie of the year. Wouldn't it, man? Can you imagine if this kid won offensive and defensive rookie of the year? Let me say this. If he does that, I think his name has to be by default in MVP discussions. Again, I'm not saying he will win both awards, but who are we to put it past this kid? There's a reason he was the number one high school prospect coming out of high school. There's a reason he balled out in his brief time at Jackson State. There's a reason he was unreal at Colorado and won the Heisman Trophy a season ago. So, again, guys that defy conventional wisdom in sports, and especially guys, in addition to that, who have sick work ethics, those are the guys that end up being the all-time greats. I think Travis Hunter's going to be that. I really, really do. So, it was for a draft that was kind of billed as the sort of, from a talent perspective, not what last year's draft was, not really what the last 2022 wasn't that great of a draft, but the last 5 years or so, the talent maybe just didn't stack up to what we've seen recently. it was fascinating to see where certain teams went, what certain teams prioritized. Again, the Shedeur thing is the story which we led the show with, and then Travis Hunter going, I mean, we have a blockbuster trade immediately. We knew the Titans were going to go Cam Ward. So we'll get into each of the first-round picks over the course of the next half hour. So I'll sort of give my breakdown analysis, and then we'll kind of touch on some NBA stuff at the end of the show, and then some second-round projections, as the second round will be beginning at the end of the show. So very excited about that. Stay tuned, rather, for the next minute or so, or for the minute commercial break that we have. Be back in 1 minute on Carving Up Live to break down each of the first round picks that happen over the course of this 2025 NFL draft. You do not want to miss it. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. So again, last night was an incredible time doing the show last night. And by the way, I'll go and put the thumbnail one more time. If at any point you want to check out the Grid Network 2025 first round, live reaction show, definitely be sure to check that out. It's on the Grid's YouTube. We also live streamed on Instagram for the first time. In the Grid's history, we were live on X via our X account and via our guy EJ Savage's X account. You see EJ on the right there next to my big ugly mug, but Mike Guido right next to me as well. So we were able to host. Tim Barner was able to join us throughout the course of the show as well. So it was very exciting to have all this in there. And I thought it was a great night for us as a network. I thought everybody was on their A game. So if you want to check out great first round draft coverage, or I guess sort of relive it as it happened, definitely check it out. It's on the Grid Network's YouTube channel. And EJ and Mike will continue to cover the course of this draft, particularly rounds 2 and 3 tonight. So definitely stay tuned for that and check that out right after my show ends. So the first round's over. All 32 picks are in. We touched on Travis Hunter. I've done a breakdown of that. We touched on a guy who wasn't a first rounder, Shedeur Sanders. So let's go over, and we'll probably, this will be just one big massive, I guess, mini segments that make up a big segment, but just kind of going over each of the first round picks. So it's so funny. Cam Ward goes number 1 overall to the Tennessee Titans, the quarterback out of Miami. It's amazing to me. I feel like this is the least. I mean, 2022 was Walker from Georgia going to the Jaguars when everybody thought they should have taken Aiden Hutchinson, which we all ended up being right on that. I don't know what the Jaguars were thinking, but I've never seen so, particularly with a quarterback going first, which is usually how it goes. I've never seen less coverage for a first overall pick quarterback than with Cam Ward. Some of it is the Shedeur Sanders factor. Some of it, I guess, is because Tennessee is just not a flashy, exciting franchise. And so, listen, but Cam Ward is the best overall prospect of this draft. He's got a rocket arm, moves well. He's going to be asked to do a lot. Tennessee has a bad O-line. I do have some concerns about any guy that isn't just, all-time great quarterback prospect, and Cam is the best QB in this class. He was a top 10 player I would have had on my board, but not like at least the way I see it, a generational changes everything type of pick. I still think he's going to be a very good player in the NFL. I do have concerns about guys who are asked to save franchise, to be able to be, sort of the guy that turns everything around. I got to see more from Callahan. Again, I'll give Brian Callahan Callahan a second crack at it. But because Will Levis is your quarterback last year, and I was never high on Will Levis since he was in college, so I'm not surprised that it worked out the way that it did. But pulling for Cam Ward, he seems like a really, really good kid, works hard, loves football, and so I think this is going to be a really good selection for the Tennessee Titans. It's going to work out in the long run because, listen, in that division, again, Jacksonville's I love Trevor, but I could be wrong. Jacksonville, I have to imagine some questions about him. Stroud's the man in Houston, that goes without saying. And then you look rest of that division. Yeah, the Colts with Anthony Richardson and with Daniel Jones. There's some serious questions there at quarterback. So Cam can maybe be in a position where he can take that sort of best quarterback in the division spot, which it's not a shot. It's not a shot at him because Stroud's that good. So see what Cam Moore does in the next level. I do like him as a prospect. Talked about Travis Hunter. I do think the Jaguars won that trade, getting him at 2. Abdul Carter to the Giants at this point. I think none of us were surprised by this pick. The only thing that I thought could happen is because the Giants have so stacked of a defensive line already. Stacked is strong. So good of a defensive line already. They're like, hey, it's strength on strength, yes, but maybe we could trade back and address more of our needs. But at the same time, Abdul Carter, some people had him as the best player on their board. It was either him or Travis. This guy is a freak pass rusher off the edge, has an insane motor. I think he's going to be awesome in New York. I think he's a day one potential Pro Bowler as a rookie. I think he's that good. I think he's going to be awesome for the Giants. And in a division where you've got in my mind, three elite quarterbacks in Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, and Jaden Daniels, you have to be chasing those guys a lot, make their life as difficult as possible, especially when you may have some questions about your quarterback situation, which we'll get to. That's you better be able to get to the quarterback, and Abdul Carter will be able to do that day one in the National Football League. Again, the first 4 picks, not necessarily the teams because of the Jaguars trade, but the first 4 picks were kind of chalk. We figured Cam Moore would go 1, Travis 2, Abdul Carter 3, and Will Campbell 4 to the Patriots. Again, the big kind of knock on him was arms. What was his wingspan, arm size, all of it. I get that. I also think this guy's the best tackle in this draft. I think the Patriots are in a spot where, they have holes everywhere on their roster. And by the way, they did address some of those in free agency, Milton Williams and Stephon Diggs, I guess most notably. I think for New England and sort of the motto in the NFL is you got to protect your most valuable asset, which is obviously Drake May at this point, who obviously we know what he was in college at North Carolina, very talented, showed promise last year, but it's hard to judge. Like with some of those just rookie issues that he was dealing with in terms of inconsistency, with some of that because the Patriots had the worst roster in football and have the last couple of years or so. I think it was kind of a mix of the two. I think Drake May is really talented and can work. Josh McDaniels is a bad head coach. He's a solid OC. Made Mac Jones look like a NFL. Mac Jones, a Pro Bowler as a rookie. Think of what the gymnastics you got to do as an OC to make that happen. So I think Drake May can work, and obviously I think Vrabel's an awesome coach. So you protect Drake May, and the reality is your best offensive linemen go in the first round, just historically. They just do. So you take them where you can, and listen, offensive line is I've said for years, it is the AC of the NFL, where man, when it's working, I'm in an AC building now. I'm not even. I just recently thought about AC after I brought it up. But if the AC wasn't working, and I'm in Florida right now, and it's 80 degrees indoors, I'm feeling it, and I'm sweating right now on the show. If that's the case, like I say that to say, you only notice about just watching with naked eye. You only notice the bad offensive. You only notice the offensive line if it's not playing well. If they're doing their job, quarterbacks living the ball on time on target. Oh, the quarterback's amazing. And that he very well could be. But you got to have that protection. And I think the Patriots are taking the steps to address that. Mason Graham goes 5. We, again, not chalk team, but chalk pick. We did figure Mason Graham would go number 5. He went number 5 in a lot of mock drafts. He goes to the Browns. I think he'll be able to take advantage of the double teams Myles Garrett faces. And again, he's kind of a classic, Michigan guy, Big Ten. This is going to fit perfectly. He's an AFC North type of guy. I think this kid's going to be really successful at the NFL level. Folks didn't move, even with the recent reports. We know in this draft process, those last 2 weeks or so, those last 10 days-ish leading up to the first round of the draft, there's a lot of BS. There's a lot of tea leaves and, oh, look at this. Rumors say some of those are true. Others are BS, so teams can put themselves in a position to take the player that they want or get the leverage for a deal that they want. So you got to be very careful with what sources you hear or see the closer you get to the draft. I say that because there were a lot of folks, a lot of sources that are like, hey, Kelvin Banks to the Raiders, looks like they may go that direction. They go Ashton Genty, running back out of Boise State, runner-up for the Heisman Trophy winner. I called it from the jump. I had 3 mock drafts, and all 3, I had Ashton Genty going to the Las Vegas Raiders. I think Omarion Hampton is close. I really love Omarion Hampton, but I think Genty is slightly the best running back in this year's draft. He is hard as crap to tackle. He actually had a great essay that he wrote recently where he was saying the sport is called tackle football, and I'm very hard to tackle, which is amazing because he's 5'8". He is just quick. He doesn't go down. He's not in terms of speed, he doesn't blow you away, but just his burst, his shiftiness, his ability to find a hole and expose it immediately is incredible. But more from a fit standpoint, listen, Pete Carroll this is who he is. All of the Pete Carroll teams of the course of his coaching career that have been successful, that have won championships, have great defenses and have not a great running game, a great running back. Reggie Bush at USC was one of probably the greatest running back of the 21st century. When Pete had success at Southern California, and then with Seattle Seahawks beast mode, Marshawn Lynch. That's how Pete Carroll likes to build his football teams. He likes conservative quarterbacks. Geno Smith, I wouldn't call him a conservative quarterback. He can be a little wild at times, but that's how Pete wants to play football. And so Genty made all the sense in the world, and I'm not surprised in the slightest the Raiders took him. And I think it's a really good pick stylistically and in terms of their culture for them. Jets make a good selection here. Armand Membo, who in my mind was the best tackle in this year's draft behind Will Campbell, the tackle out of Missouri. Armand Membo goes to the Jets at number 7. Let's back-to-back drafts for the Jets to address their offensive line. This has been the weakness of their team for the last, I'd say, half decade or so. It's what led to some of Aaron Rodgers' struggles and Zach Wilson's struggles the last couple of years. Now, some of that is Zach Wilson's just not a very good quarterback, and Aaron Rodgers at this point is not a very good quarterback relative to what he was. Being able to shore up the tackles, shore up that offensive line in a division where the Patriots have a pass rush. Buffalo, I think, is by the end of this draft is going to have some semblance of a pass rush. So being able to protect Justin Fields, especially given that Justin Fields is a scrambler, is going to be important. Especially Fields is not the long-term answer there. Curious to see if the Jets, where do the Jets pick in the second round? Do they pick high enough to take? Okay, they're pick 42. I'll be honest, I don't think Shedeur's available by then, if not because either the Browns take him with their 2 picks or the Raiders take him with theirs, or there's a trade, or the Saints could do it, I guess, at pick 40. But I don't think Shedeur Sanders will be a New York Jag. I don't think, unless they trade up for him, I don't think he'll fall to 42 is what I'm getting at. I think it's a smart pick. Armand Membo, I actually have mocked in a couple of my mock drafts to the San Francisco 49ers. I think that would have been a good pick for them, but solid selection here by the New York Jets. Ted McMillan to the Carolina Panthers. I was surprised by this because I said I was called it from the jump with Ashton Genty being mocked at 6 to the Raiders in all 3 of my mock drafts. Well, I got it wrong too, because in all 3 of my mock drafts, I had Jalen Walker to the Carolina Panthers, because I thought the weakness of their football team, and there are a few, was their pass rush. It was abysmal last year, could not get pressure on the quarterback, and I thought Jalen Walker would supply that need. But I think the Carolina Panthers are kind of sending a message, which some of these teams are, which is, okay, Bryce Young, drafted you number 1 overall, gave up a haul to select you in 2023, obviously took over CJ Stroud, bad rookie year, atrocious start to year 2, bench for Andy Dalton, and he came back, and he was kind of started slow and then slowly got better and better. I did segments on it in this show where the last quarter of the season, I'd say the last 6-7 games or so, when you compared his numbers with CJ Stroud, they were almost identical. And in some cases, Bryce was better. Bryce showed accuracy. Once Carolina's offensive line improved, he showed real poise, some of the stuff you liked about him at Alabama, despite the size concerns. And so Ted McMillan, the best receiver in this draft on most boards. There are character concerns. I get that, but there are some Mike Evans similarities. Dave Canales, head coach of the Panthers, was the offensive coordinator with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Baker Mayfield his first year there, when Mike Evans was obviously the number 1 receiver in Tampa. So Ted McMillan, Xavier Legette, like the Panthers, solid offensive line. And we'll see what Carolina does the rest of this draft. Panther, with the good coach in Canales, I think the Panthers are sending a message like, okay, we saw that growth in year 2. It's the Bill Parcells rule that I've quoted many times on the show. Year 1, regardless of what you see from rookie quarterback, is just a developmental year. You kind of just get what you get. You develop them where you can. Year 2, you need to see a jump. You just do. And by year 3, if you're still not quite sure he's the guy, move on, cut ties. Well, year 1 was a struggle for Bryce Young. He went to a tough situation, bad ownership group, and it showed. And then by the end of year 2, you saw the progression. You saw the growth. You saw the ability to be what the Panthers thought he'd be with that first pick. Now can he take that next step in an NFC South that isn't exactly murderer's row? I mean, the Buccaneers have owned that division for a half decade now. The Falcons feels like they're always got the talent to do, but can't quite put it together. We'll get to them. I'm a Penix believer big time, but I'm also a Bryce believer at this point. And so I think this pick sends a message. I probably would have taken Jalen Walker, but I get where Carolina went with this pick. Kelvin Banks Jr. goes to the. By the way, hold on. Yeah, McMillan, receiver out of Arizona. Forgot to mention that. Tackle out of Texas, Kelvin Banks Jr. goes to the New Orleans Saints. Listen, this team has a number of holes. They're, due to injury and guys not living up to what they thought they'd be. The Saints offensive line has been ravaged by injury. There were some rumors they could take Shedeur here, but I think they had the same intel that most league did, that Shedeur was going to fall. So they address offensive line. Banks is a really good player, big time program. Listen, when you're going against SEC defensive ends and outside linebackers in 3-4 schemes for an entire season in the Southeastern Conference with a team as talented as Texas, you're used to going against the big boys. I've called the SEC minor league NFL just in terms of the raw talent that's in that conference, and so I think he'll be ready to succeed at the next level with the New Orleans Saints. The shock of this draft to me happened at number 10. I still haven't quite not gotten over it, because it's not even a bad pick. It's just a surprising pick. The Chicago Bears, number 10, go at the tight end. It is not Tyler Warren. It is Colston Loveland. Big Ten guy, but from the University of Michigan. So Colston Loveland is, I talked about last night in the draft show, is much more of the sort of Travis Kelce mold, whereas Tyler Warren's more is like the George Kittle mold. I'm not saying either of those guys will be the level of those players, but certainly the upside is there for them to be successful. But Colston Loveland is more the receiving threat. He's more the guy that can separate and put up solid numbers at Michigan, given that Michigan was just a 1 out of 10, a 0.5 out of 10 passing game in the Big Ten last season. So you look at what the Chicago Bears have now, right? They get the center from, from Atlanta. I think they got the center from Atlanta. They get Joe Tooney from the Kansas City Chiefs in a trade. So they bolster what was not a very good O-line. They've already spent, a first-round pick, Darnell Wright, a couple of years ago, my man out of Tennessee. Now you have DJ Moore. Now you have Colston Loveland, the tight end there, Cole Kmet. You also have Roman Dunze. Like, the weapons are there. And to top it off, Ben Johnson's your play caller. So it is, and listen, folks know I am over the moon high on Caleb Williams, and I did think he showed signs of brilliance, and then some rough games against like Washington and Seattle and others. But the last game of the year, I thought he was great against Green Bay. So like, the signs were there. I thought the coaching for the Bears last season was nothing short of embarrassing, especially in late game situations. Remember that Thanksgiving game against Detroit? So Ben Johnson, we'll see what he is as a head coach. I know what he is as a play caller, and he is out of this world great. So the tools are there for Caleb Williams to be successful. I would, again, you heard me do the 3-year rule with young quarterbacks. If this kid can't show serious improvement by year 2, there's some serious questions, because this is an offensive team right here. So I really like what the Chicago Bears are doing. I would have taken Tyler Warren, but Colston Loveland is not a bad pick, and he's been rising on a lot of people's boards. Michael Williams, the edge out of Georgia, goes to the San Francisco 49ers at pick 11. This is kind of a classic 49ers pick. They loved going with defensive linemen in the first round. And listen, you pair him opposite Nick Bosa. You put him on a D-line. And by the way, Robert Saleh back coaching that defense, trying to get the Niners back into where they were, as one of the most feared defensive lines and defenses in general in the National Football League. So I actually like this pick. There was some controversy, when is there not, with the Dallas Cowboys with their pick at 12 going Tyler Booker. So initially, when the commissioner first announced it, when we were doing the show last night, I was like, Tyler Booker. And I was thinking like late first round, early second round. Like, this feels like a little bit of a reach here by the Dallas Cowboys. I would have gone receiver. I would have, or running back, either Amari Hampton or Matthew Golden. Listen, if there's one thing the Dallas Cowboys are horrendous at, it is acquiring talent, offensive skill talent to put around Dak Prescott. They suck at it. CeeDee Lamb's awesome. Outside of that, it is rubbish in Dallas. I've said, if you took CeeDee Lamb off the Dallas Cowboys, they are arguably the worst receiving core in the National Football League, and their running game ain't that great either. With that being said, I mentioned the best offensive lineman going round 1. Number 2, Dak, and EJ Savage made a great point in our show last night. Dak is actually really good against pressure or off the edge, because he can move. Dak's often at his best moving out of the pocket, throwing on the run. He's not great with pressure up the middle. And with Zach Martin now retired, you better shore up that other guard spot opposite. Better shore up that one of those guard spots now with Tyler Booker in here. And listen, by the way, you saw when he got drafted. He's an Alabama guy, so those guys always tend to be high character. But you saw when he was drafted. I mean, he could not have. you hear the analogy like a kid in a candy store. He literally looks like a kid in a candy store. Like he is running, jumping. Yeah, let's go. There's no human being more excited to be a Dallas Cowboy yesterday than Tyler Booker. And so they're getting a passionate guy. They're getting a good leader. They're getting a high character guy from Alabama. I actually don't hate the pick. Now, Dallas better go address receiver and running back at some point in this draft, particularly running back as loaded as this class is. They need to get one of those guys and give Dak a shot to be I shouldn't say to be successful, to not have to drag below average talent opposite CeeDee Lamb every single Sunday. So I think the Cowboys have an obligation to their quarterback to do that. I've been pretty vocal about that for some time now. Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle, goes to the Dolphins. Defensive tackle out of Michigan. Again, they got a lot of needs. They got to shore up that defensive line. No problem with that pick there. Jim Harbaugh guy. I thought he could have potentially fallen to the Chargers with Jim Harbaugh, and they'd taken him. Tyler Warren goes to the tight end out of Penn State, was my number one tight end on my board. He goes to the Indianapolis Colts. I had him mocked here. A lot of folks had Tyler Warren mocked to the Colts. This is one of the most tight end needy teams in the National Football League. The question is, I think he's going to have much more impact as a blocker this year than a pass catcher, simply because either Daniel Jones is your quarterback or Anthony Richardson is your quarterback, and he's not exactly known for his accuracy. So I think the Colts will have a new quarterback that's not one of those two guys in 2026. And then Tyler Warren as a pass catcher can be more successful, but he's going to be a big time blocker for my gosh, what's my man's name? The running back for the Colts. Jonathan Taylor. I was thinking Jonathan Stewart, but that was a Panthers running back. Jonathan Taylor. Then Jalen Walker. Again, I think we kind of saw this coming from a mile away once he slipped here. A linebacker out of Georgia goes to the Atlanta Falcons. So listen, again, Georgia kid, I was actually surprised to learn that the Falcons have not taken a Georgia Bulldog in the first or second round since 1966. So this is just not something they do it very often. But when's the last time the Falcons have just had a blue chip get to the quarterback consistently pass rush guy? They just don't. And so kudos to them for addressing that side of the ball. They need to continue to do so. Also help Michael Penix Jr. out, maybe get a weapon or two throughout the course of this draft. We'll see what they decide to do in rounds 2 and 3. Walter Nolan, defensive tackle at Ole Miss. Again, some character concerns. He goes to the Arizona Cardinals. But again, just blue chip prospect. Is probably, at least in my mind, the second best defensive tackle in this draft to Mason Graham. I think that's a solid pick by Arizona. Kind of a reach here at 17. Shedeur Stewart, defensive edge rusher out of Texas A&M, goes to the Cincinnati Bengals. So I don't know if this says, hey, we're going to put him opposite Trey Hendrickson, or the Trey Hendrickson deal may actually not happen. We're just going to trade him and he'll be our premier edge rusher, or both. Or they're taking both things into account and being prepared for either scenario. But the upside is there. I get it. The production did not quite meet it at Texas A&M. Shedeur Stewart to the Bengals. We'll see if they're able to develop. And the Bengals are not exactly known for defense, so we'll see what happens. Gray Zabel, kind of a classic Seahawk pick. Center out of North Dakota State, the FCS power in college football, goes to the Seattle Seahawks. Again, giving Sam Darnold some help in the interior of that offensive line. I think this is a solid pick by Seattle. There were some rumblings. Again, we talk about tea leaves being kind of BS as we get closer to the draft. Sometimes there is some substance there. That was the case with Gray Zabel being rumored to the Seahawks for the last few days. He ends up in Seattle. A guy I really like, Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State, wide receiver, goes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I was surprised Tampa went receiver. I thought they might go pass rusher, the guy I thought I had them mocked in terms of who they would take, ended up going later to a division rival we'll get to. But Emeka Egbuka is a sound receiver. Again, came from a traditional powerhouse, Ohio State, where they just put out. It's kind of like what Alabama did about a decade ago, where every year they just came out with another receiver. It's like, okay, this guy's gonna be 1,000 yards day one, and you now put him in a Tampa offense where it's Baker Mayfield, Bucky Irving is your running back, who had a great year last year. Kate Otten is your tight end. I've always been a Kate Otten fan. Mike Evans, we know who he is. Chris Godwin, some concerns coming off of injury, and then you add Emeka Egbuka to that crew. That is a scary offense. The Buccaneers are just doubling down. We are going to be an offensive football team despite having a defensive head coach, which is kind of ironic. But kudos to the Bucs on this pick. I think, I don't know if it's necessarily where I would have gone, but I do love the player, and I think he'll be successful with Baker and the Bucs. Jedi Barron goes to the Broncos. There were some character concerns. Corner out of Texas. Another surprising pick where it's like, man, you know what the Broncos need? probably not a corner. They got the best in the NFL in Pat Surtain. And so they said, you know what? We're just going to say the Chiefs will always have talent on the outside, especially with Mahomes. The Chargers, I think, will eventually upgrade in terms of getting some real talent on the outside. And the Vegas Raiders, well, there's Brock Bowers. They have a number of other guys that can beat us. We're just going to have two guys who are going to be shut down corners. Jedi Barron was the best corner on my board. I actually had him mocked going to the Dolphins because Miami is probably going to be moving Jalen Ramsey, but putting him opposite Surtain, it caught a lot of us off guard, but I don't hate the pick here. Derek Harmon to my Steelers. So defensive tackle out of Oregon. Excellent young player. Is a good kid. I mean, I don't know if anyone has seen the story about him and his mother. I really implore, we don't necessarily have time to get into it. I implore everybody out there to go look it up. This is a good young man and a really talented players. I mean, I think Kuiper had him 15th on his board. He falls to 21 in Pittsburgh. Andrew Filipponi, who's a radio guy in Pittsburgh, PA, said that the Steelers see this guy as sort of like a Cam Hayward replacement or a Cam Hayward successor is the better way to put it. And you put him on a defensive line. So you got Derek Harmon and you got Cam Hayward at the end of his career, but still productive, and TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. Amazing defensive line that is going to continue to wreak havoc on the AFC North and the AFC in general. If the Steelers were not high on Shedeur Sanders, I disagree with it, but I'm not an NFL scout. Okay. If there's a quarterback the Steelers like in this draft, take him. If there's not, and you feel like you'd be reaching, then don't. Wait till next year. I would really prefer they just play Mason Rudolph. It's a mediocre to bad year, which the Steelers kind of have been needing for a while to bottom out, to get back to prominence and playoff relevance, hopefully championship relevance because of what their history says. And then, get your quarterback then next year in what's going to be a better class, we assume. If they weren't going to go Shedeur Sanders because they didn't believe in him, go offense. Go wide receiver. Amari and Hampton. Okay, Pickens is going to be traded, I hope, kind of. Put another guy opposite DK Metcalf like this. And we'll see where they go the rest of this draft. But this freaking coaching staff led by Mike Tomlin is just so allergic to offense and getting better on the most important. Defense wins championships. I get it. You got to have something offensively. Actually, a lot more than something. And I just, it's not the pick. It's not the player I don't like. It is the position and the side of the ball they went with when they're just a dying offensive franchise for a half decade now. Plus I love the guy, and I think he's going to be a really good player. I think he's going to be a day one impact player in Pittsburgh, especially with a great defensive coaching staff, but a great defensive coaching staff who just neglects the offensive side of the ball. And that's what frustrates me. Last 10 picks or so, last 11 picks, a little bit of a speed run. Amari Hampton running back to the Chargers. I love this pick for LA. Again, Jim Harbaugh wants to run the football. And I think Amari Hampton was not that far off in my book as one of the better backs next to Ashton Genty. I think behind what's improving O-line by the year, Justin Herbert being able to take the top off of the defense. This guy's not going to see many loaded boxes. Again, watch for a dark horse to be rookie of the year, Amari Hampton to the Chargers. Matthew Golden was a little bit of a surprising pick to the Green Bay Packers at number 23, the receiver out of Texas. He's a burner. He can fly, and in a place as cold as Green Bay with a big arm quarterback like Jordan Love, that matters. And especially, listen, they've got the possession guy in Romeo Doubs. They've got kind of the shifty guy in Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed. But now you put a guy like Matthew Golden in that roster, who's your burner. Christian Watson was that, but Christian Watson deals with injuries. And as my man EJ very accurately pointed out, and I know firsthand because my sister is a Packers fan and she laments this, he has a problem catching footballs. Like it's first play of his career on, it's just followed him. And that's not the case for Matthew Golden. Good possession receiver, but also a guy who can fly. And I think Matt LaFleur is going to utilize him really well. So surprising pick, but a good pick by the Green Bay Packers. Donovan Jackson, guard out of Ohio State, goes to the Vikings. Again, second round grade by most, but you see that a lot as we get later in the first round. Again, let's protect our most valuable asset, J.J. McCarthy, who has injury concerns. Let's make his life a little bit easier with what was already an improved offensive line coming off of last year. Jackson Dart is the surprise. 25 trade that the Giants made with the Houston Texans, who trade down early into the second round. Jackson Dart is talented but erratic. He played in a pro-style offense with Lane Kiffin, and it was kind of up and down. Now, guys like that can be molded. Brian Daboll got Daniel Jones to the playoffs, and in return got him a contract that none of us thought he was worth. And so and by the way, he helped Josh Allen develop into the superstar that he has become. I get that. I think Shedeur Sanders was the obvious pick here for the New York Giants. Again, it goes back to what I was saying about Shedeur to start. So I don't get the skepticism, at least relative to Jackson Dart of all people. I'm not a fan of this pick. Again, it's Ole Miss connection, Eli Manning, Ole Miss, 2 Super Bowl. I get that. The one thing I do like about Jackson Dart a lot is he's a Star Wars fan. He intentionally resembles Anakin Skywalker, which I'm actually going to be seeing Revenge of the Sith tonight. Let's go. But that's about all I like. He's too erratic of a player for me to believe he's going to change the Giants franchise and save the jobs of Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll. Another trade. So the Rams trade down and the Falcons move up to take James Pierce Jr., my guy out of the University of Tennessee. Go Vols. James Pierce Jr. is a guy who his second to last year, 2023, had double-digit sacks, and I think in the bowl game against Iowa, had a pick six. A defensive end had a pick six. This is the kind of athlete this guy is. There are concerns about work ethic, and that's every executive has talked about around the league about how hard this guy works. It's a question, and it showed last year where he was really good, but his sack total went down from, I think it was 10.5 to 7.5 a year ago with my Tennessee Volunteers. But the Atlanta Falcons are saying, we don't care. We got a defensive coach, Raheem Morris. We're going to go all in on our pass rush. We're going to have James Pierce on one side. We're going to have Jalen Walker on the other, and we're going to be coming after quarterbacks in that NFC South. I don't hate the pick. Obviously, I'm always going to be a pro Tennessee Vols guy, but it's an interesting pick, especially given that they took Walker just 11 picks before. But we'll see if Atlanta knows something here with what they're doing. Malachi Starks is a classic Baltimore Ravens pick, a safety out of Georgia. I think it makes all the sense in the world. The Ravens love to shore up the back end of their defense. Again, is a dude that just kind of fits the Baltimore Ravens sort of mold, so they go with him. Tyleik Williams, defensive tackle out of Ohio State, goes to the Detroit Lions. I would not be mad at the Lions with all defense, just chalk defense, start to finish in this draft. Maybe took like a receiver in like the 6th round or something to try and replace Jamison Williams, who might end up getting moved sooner rather than later. But I do think it's a solid pick here for the Detroit Lions. Address the defensive line, especially. Aiden Hutchinson's awesome. Let's give him some help on the interior. I think it's a good pick by Detroit. Josh Connerly Jr., tackle out of Oregon, goes to the Washington Commanders. They are intent on making Jaden Daniels' life as easy as it can be. We're going to trade for Laramie Tunsil from the Houston Texans, which is a move I did not like that Houston made. And then we're going to make a move for Josh Connerly Jr., the tackle out of Oregon. We're going to protect our asset, Jaden Daniels, unreal rookie season, one of the best we've ever seen by a quarterback. Let's double down on that. Let's surround it with talent. This is what you do. It's a draft pick, I get it, as opposed to a free agent signing, but this is what you do with guys in a rookie contract. Dallas Cowboys didn't do it with Dak Prescott. Just want to throw that in there. But when you have a rookie guy making nothing, you just stack the roster. We're going to develop him. We're going to make him as comfortable as he can be in the NFL. So when the rosters aren't as talented moving forward, he's sort of been able to learn with the best of the best around him to ease him into that process. The Commanders have just done a great job. That franchise went from maybe the worst run team to one of the best run teams. Ownership makes a big difference. We know this in the National Football League. Bills need to go defense. They do. Maxwell Harrison, the corner out of Kentucky, is the pick here. Listen, the Bills I talked about all last year. The reason I never thought they were going to beat Kansas City as good as they were, as great as Josh Allen was, they could not make stops and they had to. And I think Maxwell Harrison is going to help with that defense. I would have Nick Imamori, who's still on the board, I thought was going to be their pick here. Given the troubles, God bless him. We all love him, Damar Hamlin. I mean, just thank the good Lord above that man is not only just still with us, but playing football still. But there are limitations there, and I thought that was a position the Bills need to address. That's another team like Detroit that needs to go heavy defense in this draft. Maxwell Harrison's a good pick here for the Bills. Jahad Campbell, the rich get richer. Linebacker out of Alabama, goes to the defending champion Philadelphia Eagles, who swap places with the team they beat, Kansas City. And so, look, Jahad Campbell is an athletic guy. Alabama guy, again, usually those are high character players. I actually, a couple of mock drafts ago, had him mocked falling to Philly at 32. They get him with the traded Kansas City at 31, put him with Zach Bond. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Philadelphia. Listen, they were going to go best player on the board because they really just don't have many holes, but it's a great pick by the Eagles and a great pick by the Kansas City Chiefs to close the first round. Josh Simmons, the tackle out of Ohio State. I mean, if there's any team that is scarred by Super Bowl losses in large part due to bad O-line play, the Tampa loss, most notably, but also the Philly loss, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, we talked about it was a theme last night, theme today. Protect your most valuable asset. We're going to go get Josh Simmons. There are some medical concerns. We trust we're a well-run franchise. We have great scouts. We love this player. He is going to be our tackle. He's going to be protecting Patrick Mahomes for years to come. I think it's a great pick by the Kansas City Chiefs to round out the first round. We will be back in just 1 minute to do a quick recap, a quick segment on my Golden State Warriors because there's some more Jimmy Butler news after the injury in Game 2. Be back in just 1 minute on Carving Up Live. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. So, yeah, there's our first round draft reaction. And again, obviously on Monday's show, we'll have more. Once the draft is complete, everybody's made their picks. We'll do more of like who won the draft, who I think. I did this segment last year where I had the 3 teams that I think had the best draft, the 3 teams that I thought had the worst, or at least the most confusing. It's hard to judge. These guys haven't played in the league yet, but we too, just based on need, have a pretty good sort of understanding about, where teams are going to go. So, quickly in NBA playoffs, briefly, Oklahoma City makes a wild comeback. I think they were down 29 points or 26. I think 29 points is where the league got to at one point against the Memphis Grizzlies last night. Ja gets hurt. They come back and win. Does Oklahoma City. This is going to be a sweep. Great game last night in Detroit between the Knicks and Pistons. That's going to be a rock fight of a series. And then the Clippers just taking Denver to the woodshed last night. My gosh. Listen, this is kind of why I picked the Clippers to win the series is there's a talent gap. Obviously, Jokic is the best player. We get that. Denver has the championship experience, but my gosh, it's the wing scoring, the wing defense. There's a reason the Clippers are better. To the Golden State Warriors and Jimmy Butler, because when he suffers that fall in Game 2, again, as a Warriors fan watching, I'm like, oh my God. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Like this, of course. We get on this run, second half. We go from the mediocre team of the National Basketball Association to oh my gosh, we're a championship team, and I've staked my claim. I think we're going to win the title. And Butler goes down like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. And what we've gotten lately is, he's injured. Long term, it looks like he'll be fine. So this is from Shams yesterday that Golden State Jimmy Butler has been diagnosed with a deep glute muscle contusion, and his status for Game 3 against the Houston Rockets is in serious jeopardy. This is the best case because MRI showed Jimmy Butler avoided any fracture or structural damage. If I had to guess based on the newest reports that we have, I could be wrong. I don't think Jimmy plays in Game 3, although he is pushing, according to reports, pushing like crazy to play in Game 3. So much so, Marcus Spears, Mark J. Spears, who's covered the Warriors for some time, does an amazing job. Mark J. Spears for ESPN said yesterday that he got a tweet from Jimmy Butler's agent, and a text from Jimmy Butler's agent, and it said, and I quote, "Pray for the bear." Now, for those who don't get the reference, that's the, "Have you ever seen me find the forest with a grizzly bear?" That thing. Pray for the bear. That tells me Jimmy is going to try like crazy to play game 3. I think the Warriors are going to say, let's be smart about this. I know we need to take our home games here. This is a 1-1 series. Jimmy will be obviously in better shape to play game 4. I think Jimmy absolutely plays game 4. I'm staking my claim to that now, barring any setback. If he does not play game 3 tomorrow night, don't care. Think the Warriors win. I think being at home, I think the narrative like, oh, the physicality, it's starting to get to Steph. Steph going to have something to say about that, just like he did the last time when he struggled against the Houston Rockets, came out in game 1, dropped 31 on their heads on Ime Udoka, he has consistently owned his defenses over the course of the last few years. So I think Golden State wins. And what is the biggest rule? One of the biggest rules, two rules about the NBA playoffs we know to be true. One is we are literally seeing it play out in the series and throughout the playoffs is refs swallow the whistle. We are not calling fouls unless it is absolutely obvious. We are going to allow physical play. We're going to lie to beat each other up. So much so they're kind of going a little too far in the other direction in the Golden State Houston series where it's like, how about this? We will call every foul for every like 3 or 4 that we see. Okay. That's how they're officiating the series. They are being consistent. I will give them that. Hopefully that continues from the officials. What's the second biggest rule we know about the NBA playoffs? Role players are way better at home. So the Houston role players, guys like Amin Thompson, guys like Tari Eason, Steven Adams, their production will decline. On the road at Golden State for the Warriors, Pajemski, who hopefully is over his food poisoning, will step up. Moses Moody will step up. Quentin Post. These guys are going to step up. It's the home crowd. They're sleeping in their own beds. They know they got to take their home games this series after they got home court advantage after stealing game 1. I think the Warriors win game 3 in a close one. If Jimmy Butler is out, I think Jimmy Butler returns for game 4, and then they take that one. But we'll have more on that on Monday's show. And with that, that is all the time we have for today's episode of Carving Up Live. Appreciate everybody tuning in. The second round of the draft is starting right now, and Mike Guido and EJ Savage are going live right now. I believe right now at this moment, potentially, again, pre-recording the show. So this is a guest, but on the Grid Network's YouTube channel. So check them out right now as they cover rounds 2 and 3 of the 2025 NFL draft. They both do an awesome job. You are missing out if you don't tune into their content. Check them out. Check our other amazing content creators out on the Grid. Last night was fun. This draft reaction was fun. And we will talk to you guys on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube, as well as on Twitter. We'll see you on Monday. Stay safe out there, everybody. God bless y'all. Peace out. Pulling for you, Shedeur. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.